All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the Inflation Reduction Act, federal funding for Lake County. My name is Angela Shute, and I am the Municipal Engagement Manager with the Illinois Environmental Council. Really quickly, I wanted to introduce you all to our interpreter today, Topacio Hernandez. I will pass the microphone over to her for some instructions.
Thank you. Gracias a todos por estar aquí. Esta junta tendrá instrucciones e interpretación. Daré las instrucciones después de este mensaje. Podrán seleccionar el globo abajo de su pantalla y entonces elegir el lenguaje de español. Si no ven este globo abajo de su pantalla después de este mensaje, pueden seleccionar los tres puntitos que dicen More arriba o abajo de su pantalla y seleccionar el cuarto de interpretación, el globo y el lenguaje español. If you would also like to be able to access English interpretation in case of any questions or comments from our Spanish speakers, please also feel free to select the English interpretation room after this message. You will be able to see a globe at the bottom of your screen. If you are on a mobile device, you will be able to see this option under the three dots that say More, either at the bottom or top of your screen. Select the globe and select the English language. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Topacio. Appreciate that. All right, and with that, we'll get started. So at Illinois Environmental Council, we are actually co-hosting today with the Clean Power Lake County, or CPLC, the Office of Senator Tammy Duckworth, and the Office of Representative Rita Mayfield. Today, we will have presentations by Frank Pettis from CPLC, by Thomas Mosley from Senator Duckworth's office about the IRA programs under the US EPA, and a presentation by John DeRosa from the Illinois EPA, and also a presentation by Robin Grooms by Lake County. And so thank you all so much for joining us today. Before we start, some quick housekeeping. Throughout this webinar, you may enter any questions into the chat. We'll have a Q&A session after all of the presentations where we'll read questions from the chat, or you can come off mute to ask your questions as well. This is a lot of information, but please rest assured that the webinar is being recorded, and a recording will be made available to you, along with the presentation slides and supplemental educational materials in both Spanish and English. We will also host a town hall on June 27th at the Waukegan Public Library for Lake County community members. We will share important information about the IRA and program benefits to residents, so please do help us spread the word. And with that, I will kick us off with some high-level information about the IRA, as well as an introduction to our organization, the Illinois Environmental Council. So since 1975, IEC has worked to safeguard Illinois, the people, plants, animals, and natural systems on which all life depends by building power for people and the environment. Representing over 150 organizations operating in the state, IEC carries out its mission to advance equitable public policies that create healthy environments across Illinois through collaboration, building power, and advocacy. So really quickly, some background. Signed into law in 2022, the IRA is the largest investment in clean energy in United States history, and also the most significant action our nation has ever taken on climate change. This is such important legislation, and that's why we want to share this information with you today. This gives money directly to the people. These are once-in-a-generation federal investments projected to achieve up to 40% reduction in climate pollution by 2030. Already, we're seeing positive impacts of climate-friendly projects across the country, creating 271,000 good, clean energy jobs. And we cannot talk about the IRA without quickly mentioning CEJA, or the Illinois 2021 Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. Because of CEJA, we have actually laid the groundwork to receive this federal funding in the state of Illinois. We'll also go over a couple of the programs. This chart is not comprehensive, but it shows a few of the buckets of funding that we'll talk about today. So there's the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, under which there is the Solar for All program, the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, which we'll present today under the US EPA information. There's also the Rural Energy for America program. We also have some environmental and climate justice programs. And separate from those, we have various tax credits, reductions, and rebates that Frank will be talking about today, as well as direct pay. So with these investment credits, we can also do adders on top of those. What those are these tax bonuses that can be added on top of these tax credits you receive by investing and creating these projects devoted to clean energy. So for example, if you have a clean electricity investment tax credit, and then you add on a couple adders like the domestic content or energy community adder, that will actually bring up to 50% already. So it's half of the cost of your project being funded by these tax credits. Really importantly, what's available for municipal leaders and also local government entities is direct pay or elective pay. For the first time ever, these eligible entities can directly receive payments equal to the full value of tax credits for building these qualifying clean energy projects. So this is really huge. One of the things I wanted to share with y'all today is this great resource called the Climate Program Portal. It was created by Atlas, and you can actually go online and create a free account and track all this funding that is available to you. It was created specifically for municipal leaders to be able to track the funding, and you can zoom in on Illinois and see what is available and what is the breakdown between buildings, transportation, anything that you're interested in under the IRA, as well as the bipartisan infrastructure law. And my last note for you is please help us share the power of storytelling. Visibility helps spread awareness of these programs and that they are working. These success stories show a cause and effect. So if you're seeing these success stories of the IRA in Lake County, please share those stories with us, and we love to elevate those stories. And with that, here's my contact information, and thank you so much. And next, I'll pass it over to Frank Pettis with CPLC.
Cool. So, greetings, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So my name is Frank Pettis. I'm an organizer with Clean Power Lake County. So happy to see so many familiar names in the chat. Yeah, thank you for allowing me the time, right? So I've been organizing with Clean Power Lake County since January. The organization itself has been around since 2013, right? And it got its start as part of the Beyond Coal campaign through the Sierra Club. It's since kind of branched off and become its own entity, and that's where we come in now. So thank you. So it's a grassroots organization, right? It has the mission to ensure clean air, clean water, and healthy soil for every Lake County community member, and to achieve the self-determination of those disproportionately impacted by environmental pollution. Okay, and then the vision for the organization is to build a sustainable community that promotes the healthy development of all Lake County communities, right? Specifically, those most vulnerable. Okay, so immigrant communities, low income and working class families, by addressing environmental racism, practicing participatory democracy, and advancing self-determination, and empowering Black, Indigenous, and people of color, right, BIPOC people. This is a really integral part of our work, and we're going to get into some data that kind of illustrates that point. So thank you. Next slide. So just to break down some of the terms that I just mentioned, right, when we talk about environmental justice, we're talking about the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. When we're talking about environmental racism, we're talking about the placement of low-income or minority communities in proximity to environmentally hazardous or degraded environments such as toxic waste, pollution, and urban decay. And then we're talking about fence line communities. We're talking about neighborhoods surrounding facilities that produce hazardous waste and which are directly affected by the corporate waste. Okay, so big terms, we're going to illustrate them in the next couple of slides. All right, so I did want to give everybody this EPA, right, Environmental Protection Agency's definition of an EJ community. It's really important as it pertains to the IRA, right, because a lot of the IRA benefits are expected to be centered in environmental justice communities or in proximity to them, right? So EJ communities, according to the EPA, are communities disproportionately impacted by environmental hazards and which face multiple environmental health burdens. Okay, communities are determined using the EJ screening tool, right? So there's 13 environmental indicators and 7 socioeconomic indicators. And I won't go through the full list, right? But I include some of them below, and then you'll have this slideshow as well. Okay, but let's illustrate these in the next slides. Okay, so the data provided here has come through our really good partner, the Brushwood Center at Ryerson Woods. In 2022, they released their Health, Equity, and Nature Report. For me, for CPLC, the work was groundbreaking, right? Because these are things that we know, but it was the first time that we saw them so vividly. Okay, so I'll be, brief in going through this because we don't have a whole lot of time, right? But the report asked, who has access to clean air, clean land, and clean water in Lake County, right? It had all of these graphics to answer that question. Okay, so first two graphs, right? On the right-hand side, we see this this measure of who, it's asking that central question, right? And the darker the area, the less access to healthy nature, to health equity, and to a healthy climate, right? Or the most overburdened. Okay, so the darker the color on the right-hand side, the most environmentally and health overburdened. The lighter the color, the least overburdened, right? So you can see that, the communities that are most overburdened in Lake County are Waukegan, Park City, North Chicago, some parts of Zion, some parts of Beach Park, Round Lake, compared to the communities that are least overburdened, right, that are the lightest, Lake Forest, Lake Zurich, right, Lake Bluff, Highwood. Okay, now if you compare that to the graph on the left-hand side, you can see this inverse relationship, right? The graph on the left-hand side covers level of household income, right? Medium household income. And you can see this inverse relationship between the level of household income and the level of overburdens, where the lower the household income in the community in Lake County, the higher the environmental and health burdens, okay? And the reverse is true. So I hope that makes sense with this one. And we go to the next one. Okay, some more data, right? So we asked, what kinds of people are in these communities, right? So on the left-hand side, you have the percentage of the population that identified as Black or African American. And on the right-hand side, you have the percentage of the population identified as Hispanic. You can see that those same communities that were most overburdened by health and environmental pollutants are also the communities that host our minority communities, right? The Black and Hispanic community in the largest numbers. Okay, next slide. Okay, so then, if we compare that to the rates of asthma and diabetes, asthma on the left-hand side and diabetes on the right-hand side, we can see again this concentration, right? And these are things, sure, you can make the argument that they're related to lifestyle choices, but there's also an ample amount of data and evidence that shows that these are environmental ailments just as much as they are related to the person's individual decisions. Okay, so concentrated asthma rates, concentrated diabetes rates in those same communities with the lower household income and the more Black and brown people. Okay, next slide. All right, so then we wanted to talk about these facilities, right? So, we'll talk about it in a few slides, but on the left-hand side, you can see risk management plan facilities, right? So these are facilities that exist in our community. Many of them are employers, right? But they aren't healthy for the surrounding environment, right? These are communities that are responsible for some hazardous releases into the surrounding environment. And you can see, a little bit more spread out through the county, right? But these are, but we have an ample amount of them. Okay. On the right-hand side, you could just see I think that was the national priority list facilities, also very concentrated. Okay, so in this graph, we have the population below the poverty line on the left-hand side, and then you have the unemployment severity on the right-hand side, right? So poverty line, below the poverty line, much more concentrated, much more in line with the first couple of graphics we saw. Unemployment severity also quite concentrated, although it's a little bit more dispersed in the poverty rate. Okay, and then we asked this question, well, not us, but the data asked this question of life expectancy, right? About, how long people are living in a particular community. And you can see this divide, right? So this graphic looks at, how the average length of life within the average age of death within the county. And you can see this clear divide where the lighter communities have a shorter lifespan, right? On average, where the darker communities have a longer lifespan. And you can see this really striking divide between a community like North Chicago, right, where the average person is only living to 64 years compared to Lake Forest, where the average person is living to 79 years. That's a total of 15 years of life expectancy difference, only 5 miles apart between the communities. Okay, so when we talk about environmental racism, we talk about environmental injustice, we're starting to see that through this graphic. All of this information is accessible online as well as in person. If you just type in the, Brushwood's Health Equity and Nature Report. Yeah, thank you. We can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to introduce a few examples, right, of the benefits through the IRA that are now accessible, right? These applications are open and they are designed for communities like what we call the Tri-Cities, right? These overburdened, low-income communities. Okay, so the first one that I want to introduce is called the Environmental and Climate Justice Block Grant Program. So this program has about $2 billion in IRA funds for community-driven environmental and climate justice projects, right? Designed to reduce pollution, increase community climate resilience, and build community capacity to address environmental and climate justice challenges. Okay, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking a little fast for folks. So specifically in EJ communities, right? So if you're in Waukegan right now, you are inside an EJ community according to the EPA. Okay, so the eligible entities for this, right? It's a partnership between two community-based NGOs. Okay, the IRA really wants to incentivize collaboration between organizations, right? So if you're an organization on your own doing good work, ask yourself who you can partner with in the community, right, to increase your chances of getting this money. Or it could be a partnership between a CBO and one of the following, right? A federally recognized tribe, maybe it's a local government, an institution of higher education, and then there's other organizations that are applicable as well, right? There's just, you have to look into it, read about it a little bit more. The applications are now open and they're open until November 21st of this year. Okay, so there's a lot of information on the EPA website, more in depth in this slide. Cool, next slide. Okay, so this pertains to our last slide, which is the next one. So this is data from 2016, right? A study done in partnership with the Sierra Club. And it just revealed that, in this community, in the Tri-Cities, that people have been asking for cleaner energy for quite a while, right? This is almost 10 years ago, where 79% of Waukegan voters said that they wanted more electricity from solar energy and 52% said they wanted less from coal. Okay, so I imagine, with the growing public and political support, this percentage has even grown, in favor of clean energy. Okay, and last slide. Okay, and I just wanted to introduce one other program opportunity, right? So the first one was for primarily nonprofit organizations in partnership with each other or with the government. This one is for businesses, right? This is called the Low Income Communities Bonus Credit Program, okay? And it's designed to increase adaptation and access to renewable energy facilities in underserved and environmental justice communities, right? So, we have to get clean energy businesses here, right? We can want it all we want, but unless those entities are incentivized to come into our community, we're still going to be at a disadvantage. Okay, so it's designed for historically marginalized communities, right? And it provides a 10 to 20 percentage point increase in the investment tax credit for qualified solar and wind energy facilities with a maximum net output of less than 5 megawatts. Okay, so it is literally incentivizing clean energy facilities in our community. Facility eligibility, right? Located in a low-income community, located on Indian land. Or it could be a qualified low-income building project or a qualified low-income economic benefit project as well. And I know it says that, the applications are now open, right? This is earlier in the week, so the applications are now open, and the first round is open through the end of June 27th. Okay, so not a whole lot of time. There'll be multiple rounds, but look into this. If you know business folks in the area. We want to incentivize them to come to our community, right? We want clean energy and we want the jobs that result from those projects. Okay, so thank you all for your time. And I'm available afterwards for any questions. maybe not right now because we were at a presentation, but after this whole event.
Thank you so much, Frank. That's such crucial information. So I appreciate you sharing that, especially about the community change grants and the low-income bonus credits. Those deadlines are coming up fast, so I appreciate highlighting that. And next, we will have Thomas Mosley with Senator Duckworth's office to talk about the US EPA programs.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Thomas Mosley. I'm the Suburban Outreach and Grants Coordinator in the office of U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth. My three main issue areas basically encompass everything that we're here to talk about, which is suburban counties, collar counties of Chicago, environment and energy, and grants. Before I started, I wanted to thank all our partners for being able to help us put this on and everyone for attending. What I'm about to talk about is the EPA's opportunities and federal funding. And then later on, we'll get a little bit into detail about the programs they have. And at the end, there will be more resources, and I will tell you how our office is able to help. Next slide, please. So as you can see, the breakdown of climate, energy, and funding, a great majority of the funding is going towards tax credits from the IRS. Now, that includes a multitude of different tax credits for clean vehicles, the conversion to clean vehicles, cost recovery for clean energy projects, facilities, property, and tech, and then also the transition into solar and wind facilities as well. Now, the rest of those funds go throughout the agencies. They're dispersed throughout different agencies, the EPA, for example, USDA, Department of Transportation, Commerce, U.S. Postal Service even, go figure, and then the Housing and Urban Development. And they create their own programs based on their priorities. Next slide, please. Now, the main purpose of this overall is to into the era of sustainability. Now, the EPA is tackling that from four different angles. You have the sector-based angles, which are mobile and stationary. When we're talking about mobile, we're talking about vehicles, converting to clean school buses, which is what the Clean School Bus Program is for, clean heavy-duty vehicles, so delivery trucks, 18-wheelers, all those different things. We have clean ports, which is focused to reduce the amount of pollution in our ports, and then also diesel emissions reductions, which overall a lot of pollutants go out into trucks that use diesel fuel. Top down would be the climate plans overall. These are giant climate plans that you would see normally from states, metropolitan areas. I'll get more into that a little bit later. And then the bottom up, which I believe my colleague Frank touched on, would be environmental justice. The EPA is taking environmental justice very serious. They're focused on targeting communities that have been historically disadvantaged over the years. Examples, as my colleague Frank touched on, would be areas like Waukegan, Zion, North Chicago. If you go into the city, you'd see areas like Little Village and Calumet. Those are prime examples of areas that have been historically disadvantaged throughout time in our area. So next slide, please. As you can see, 6 programs account for 98% of the EPA funding. We're about to get into a little detail of these programs. Next slide. The first one I'm talking about is the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. Now, this has about $5 billion that go to states and local governments. It's a 2-phase program of planning and implementation. For the planning phase, EPA provides immense support with helping the different states, local governments with their action plan. Last year, oh no, it was actually this year, one of the grantees was the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. They received, I'm not sure about the exact fund, but they received some funding for their climate action plan. So shout out to the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus and shout out to the Fox Lake Mayor, Danny Schmidt Jr., who is our representative as a part of the Lake County Municipal League. But basically the planning part that's the part the EPA helps with. And then when we talk about implementation, that's where we talk about the reimbursement of funds, putting the plan into action. Next slide, please. Then we have the Methane Emissions Reduction Program. Now, this is about a $1 billion grant in funding, and it's focused on GHG reports, monitoring emissions, and reducing emissions overall. This is specifically aligned with the Justice 40 initiative that the administration made, which is focusing on addressing areas of pollution and historically disinvested communities. Areas like coming from Zion, I definitely understand this. I mean, from the decommissioned power plant that we have to the landfill that sits just a few miles north of that area, you can definitely understand the emissions and how, as Clean Power Lake County touched on, um, the different things that go on. I mean, with health, in terms of health, and just overall the historically disadvantaged areas that have been neglected over the years. So the use of funds are for preparing and submitting greenhouse gas reports, monitoring methane emissions, and reducing methane and other greenhouse gases. Next slide, please. There are a multitude of different programs. You have the fence lining, which is basically a method of observing the atmosphere of specific areas. An example would be like a petroleum refinery or a chemical plant like Medline, which is located, I believe, in Lakehurst. For multi-pollutant, you would see how many different pollutants are in the air that are potentially affecting the air quality. There are air quality sensors where we're measuring the air quality overall in that area. Wood heaters, which give off a lot of different pollutants in the air as they are burned, and then methane monitoring. Now, these are all a part of the methane emissions reduction program, and these are just a few of the different ones. Then you have the clean heavy duty vehicles, which is $1 billion fund focused to replace fossil fuels with zero emission school buses, refuse haulers, delivery vehicles, etc. Clean ports, very similar, just for zero emission port equipment and technology, with the importance of limiting the exposure of these pollutants and greenhouse gases to the workers in these areas. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is a pretty big one. This is a $27 billion project, and it's very limited to the amount of awardees. They fund 2 to 3 national grants with the National Clean Investment Fund competition. But the one I really want to talk about is the Solar Power for All competition. That's one that's a little more applicable to us. It's up to 60 grants to states, tribes, municipalities, and nonprofits to convert to solar power, which I believe would be great, especially for low income housing in our area. And then we would have the environmental and climate justice block grants, which my colleague Frank touched on, which will benefit communities with efforts by nonprofits to overcome pollution challenges in underserved areas. Yep, those are the additional resources that we have. Basically, what our office can do is, if you ever need, or say you apply for one of these grants in the near future, our office is happy to provide a letter of support for your organization, local government, on any project that you might have. Basically, you would fill out a form on our website that goes into detail about the project, maybe a small draft, the agency that you're applying to, and then we would take it from there. We would send it to the agency directly, and God willing, hopefully the funding would come through, and then that would be an amazing thing in the future, especially if we could get the senator out there to your project. That would be amazing. So that's all I have, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate that. And just to echo the importance of this greenhouse gas reduction fund that you mentioned, yeah, I completely agree. Solar for All competition is super important. So that money moves from the US EPA to the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which, thanks to the GGRF under the IRA, as well as CEJA, Illinois as a state was able to establish our climate bank, the Illinois Finance Authority. And so the money went from there to the NCIF, the National Clean Investment Fund, to the Illinois Finance Authority as a subawardee of one of those nonprofits. And so Illinois is receiving $156 million in Solar for All from the US EPA to then expand our Illinois Solar for All program. So yeah, thank you so much, Nate. That was really great. And next, I will pass the mic over to John DeRosa from IEPA to talk about the Home Energy Rebate programs.
Thank you, Angela. Hi, everyone. My name is John DeRosa. I'm with the Illinois EPA Office of Energy. I joined the team here at Illinois EPA in January. I came from working at a nonprofit for 17 years, the American Lung Association, working on federal, state, private funding programs that we had focused on indoor and outdoor air quality. And today I'm going to talk about some of our programs coming through from the Inflation Reduction Act funding that the Office of Energy has received. And a little background on the Office of Energy. We are part of the Associate Director's Office here at the agency. So we fall under that office. The EPA Office of Energy supports energy efficiency, resiliency, and clean energy through public partnerships and interagency collaborations. Those interagency collaborations have and are important to our program. So that's working with other organizations like Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, Illinois Finance Authority, and organizations like that. With a goal to reduce the energy burden and improve energy equity here in Illinois. And we'll do this by investing in the public sector, advancing energy equity, combining energy and the environment, and support through energy education. Next slide, please. The Office of Energy receives funding from really two main sources, federal and state. Our federal funds come from the U.S. Department of Energy. As Thomas mentioned earlier, through the Inflation Reduction Act, through DOE, there was allocations that were made, and the Office of Energy did receive some of those state allocations. And allocations are funds that are, set for that state and are predetermined by DOE. So every year we get a state energy program allocation, and then this past few years we received funding through Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and also the Inflation Reduction Act, and that's the one I'm going to really focus on here today to let you know about those opportunities. So the Office of Energy received two main allocations through the IRA funds. One was for the Home Efficiency Rebate Program, and we received about $132 million allocated to Illinois. And this program focuses on energy efficiency, and I'll talk in my next slide about what energy efficiency, kind of what that consists of. And we also received an allocation for home electrification and appliance rebates. So that's taking the home, so say it has natural gas, it's taking it away from natural gas appliances and electrifying that home. And both of these programs are income-based, and I'll go over that in a little bit more detail in the coming slides. So first, I do want to talk a little bit about energy efficiency and just provide some examples. So there's some context there when we talk about energy efficiency. And these here are examples of residential energy efficiency work that can be done. So adding insulation to the building envelope. So in the walls, it could be in the attic, making sure that the home is efficient. Window replacements, retrofitting, heating and cooling equipment, the distribution system, looking at the hot water heater, trying to make that more efficient if we can, lighting upgrades, high energy appliance replacements. So, going to those Energy Star appliances, programmable thermostats, and energy metering changes. And really, we're looking at things, and I'll talk a little bit about this, that are done when you can have an energy audit done. And in that energy audit, there would be a recommendation on what you should do to meet some certain efficiency goals. And then I'll talk about that here a little bit more in the next few slides. I also want to talk about area median income. Some of the funding is based on this, and really on this slide, that 80% threshold is what DOE is using to establish low income in some of the funding sources. And this is low area median income from Chicago area. It's not particular or specific to Lake County, but it's probably close. It was from the Public Housing Authority. And you can see here at that 80% level, you can see the different levels. Low income, it's about 62,000 for a single family or one person household size. And if you get up to 4, it's about 89. So just keep some of this in your mind as we go forward and we talk about some of the funding opportunities that are available through this program. All right, so the first program kind of talk about with how much funding is available is the Home Efficiency Rebate Program. So this is focused on those energy efficiency upgrades that we talked about in the prior slide. So there's a few headings here on this slide, modeled energy savings. So this is going to be how much energy we can save by doing those energy efficiency measures. And in order to figure this out, a homeowner would have to go through an energy audit through the program. DOE does have some specific audit requirements and software that has to be used. So it'll have to go through the program. And for the first threshold there, we have a 20 to 34% energy savings that has to be modeled in order to unlock certain amounts of funding. If you're less than that 80% area median income that we kind of just talked about, you can get up to $4,000 or 80% of the project cost. I will say there on that 80% of the project cost, the state does plan to ask DOE to fund that at 100%. We know that it will be difficult for low-income households to come up with that other 20% if they had to. So, and that is something that we can do. So I do just want to let people know that. And then their DOE also provided if it's 80% AMI and greater, you could get $2,000 or 50% of the project cost. Now, if we achieve 35% or greater energy savings, so after we had that energy assessment, if it's 35% or greater, or less than 80% AMI, we can get up to $8,000 for those energy efficiency measures. Or 80% it says here, but we do intend to ask for the 100%. That is just, this is the framework that DOE established and based the requirements on, but states can request that be 100% paid for. All right, next slide, please. And so that was for, the last one was for single family households. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but this, so on this slide, it's really focused on multifamily. It's very similar, but the two things I do want to point out is that there is a per building max. So if it's in that 20 to 34%, the max that we're going to be able to do is $200,000 per building. If it's 35% or greater, we have $400,000 max per building. And that's based on DOE requirements. So the second program that was allocated to the state through the Inflation Reduction Act funding was the Home Electrification and Appliance Rebate Program. This one's a little bit more straightforward. There's set amounts that were established by DOE, and you can see them here for the different types of appliances or work that needs to be done. If you were going to go from a natural gas water heater to a heat pump water heater, you could get $1,750. If you're going to a heat pump source of space heating or cooling, you could get up to $8,000. Electric stove, cooktop, range oven, or heat pump clothes dryer, you know, you're moving from natural gas to those, you can get $840 for each one of those items. Now, because we're electrifying the home, there may be some wiring, you may need some box upgrades for your, you know, for the adding in the higher voltage, 220 plugins that you might need for some of this stuff. You can get up to $4,000 for electrical load service center work, up to $2,500 for wiring. If you do need some insulation, air sealing, and ventilation, there's also some opportunity here to receive some funding. The maximum rebate, though, per dwelling is $14,000. And here, some similar criteria to the energy efficiency program. A little different. Just there's a few different things. If you're less than 80% AMI, 100% of the qualified project costs. If you're between 80% and 150% AMI, you can get 50% of the qualified project costs. And then the same for multifamily. So I wanted to share these slides just so we can, so everyone has a. There are some set allocations that were set by DOE for both the energy efficiency program and the electrification and appliance rebate program. The state is allowed to use 20% of the funding for admin. So you can see what that would look like there. We do also have to allocate 40%, a little bit over 40% of the funds to low-income households, and that's set by DOE, and that's single-family households, and 10% to low-income multifamily. So you can see those breakdowns there. There's about 42 million going to the single-family households, and we have to do 10% to low-income multifamily. We could increase that for low-income as a state, when that's something we're talking about, making those allocations bigger for low income. We're still in the final application process, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But we're still moving along in this process. And there should be, in the second half of this year, things will start moving pretty quickly. And this is it's very similar to the last one, but this is for the electrification and appliance rebate program. Very similar allocations, 40.4% for low-income households and 10% for low-income multifamily, so 42 million, 10 million. A part of this program, in order to receive the funding from U.S. Department of Energy, we will have to do, after our our primary application is submitted, we will have to do a state implementation blueprint. And what this consists of is a community benefits plan. How is this going to benefit the communities throughout the state? How are we going to provide education and outreach to those communities? Consumer protection plan, making sure we're preventing fraud and have measures in place to make sure nobody's being taken advantage of. Because we know that there have been programs out there that there have been some problems with in the past around the country. Utility data access plan. Important part of this, especially on the energy efficiency side, is having access to that utility data in order to do the energy auditing modeling. So those plans are going to have to be in place with the utility companies, and we're going to have a good plan to get it from the rural co-ops and the municipal-owned utilities as well. Privacy and security. Risk assessment for state systems. We have to have a plan, make sure that the information we're receiving is protected. DOE wants to make sure that that states are taking this seriously. And then market transformation plan. This is due 1 year after the award date, and the best I can describe this is the transformation plan is to assure that once the funds possibly run out, that all of the work and the contractors that have come into the workplace, that this program or this type of work, energy efficiency, the switch to electrification survives, and is ongoing. So how do we transform the market to where these jobs don't just go away when the funding ends? And that comes 1 year after. Like our ongoing discussions in this program development side, we're working closely with utilities, electrical cooperatives, municipalities. We have to figure out, make sure that how these programs integrate into existing utility-based energy efficiency programs. Lake County's in ComEd territory, so there's an energy efficiency program set by the utilities, and they have a program that you can apply for. And maybe our funds work together to complement each other, so more work can be done. So we're talking closely with them, and we also need to have that utility data access. So we're working closely there. We want to make sure the rebates are available for the entire state. So it's important to work with the electrical cooperatives and municipalities also, and trying to touch every corner of Illinois. A big partner for us is the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. They run the Illinois Homes Weatherization Assistance Program, so it's very similar to the energy efficiency program. So we've been working closely with them. We're designing some contractor training and applied for some funding to make sure we have enough contractors in the state to do this work. So we are working closely with them. We are also working with the Illinois Finance Authority, making sure that there's capital available for businesses so that they can do this funds and get reimbursed, and have, if they do need, some a small revolving loan or something, that Illinois Finance Authority, we're hoping that they can help out there. And we've been in discussions, like we heard about solar for all earlier. Maybe doing the efficiency of the home first, and then electrifying it, making sure the panels are upgraded, and then we do the solar program might make sense. Maybe you can build smaller systems. So we've kind of been talking about the order of operations with some of that solar funding too as a state. And then we heard about the climate pollution reduction grant through EPA. We work closely with our other partners here at Illinois EPA who did the application for that program. We were making sure that we were filling gaps and not overlapping with our IRA funds that we were getting. So making sure we're just not doing energy efficiency for single family, multifamily. Example would be focusing more on commercial or large building applications. Timelines. Hope I'm doing all right on time, but we're almost done here. Timeline. So DOE set the date for applications due for all of the states that received funding for January of 2025. They do, and we also we're definitely not going to wait that long. And DOE doesn't want the states to either. They want to get these funds out and get them allocated as soon as possible. So where we are, we just submitted our early administration funding applications today, actually, this morning. We just got those submitted to DOE. And what that'll allow is us to get access to some of the funds to build out the software and the things that we need to do to be ready to launch in 2025. So that'll allow us to do it a little bit quicker. We do plan to submit our actual application, like our official applications, in June of 2024. We were a part of a Group 3 cohort with DOE the past few months, and being a part of that cohort was have a target goal of submitting those applications in June of 2024. In mid to late 2024, we will be conducting some public input sessions. Those will be important, especially when we're building out our implementation blueprint. We're going to make sure we're not missing anything when we design and create that implementation blueprint. And then in late 2024, early 2025, we'll have that implementation blueprint completed. And then that'll have to be submitted to U.S. Department of Energy. We have to do that 60 days prior to launch, prior to launching the actual programs. And then, we hope in 2025, Q1 or Q2 of calendar year, that we have these programs in some capacity up and launched. There's still a lot of things to work out. There's some rules and software additions that we have to make in order to meet US DOE compliance and reporting requirements. And, if we get those addressed here sooner than later, we'll be in good shape. And then I think I have one more slide. It's just make sure you join our listserv. all of this information. We provide updates through that on our programs. We have 7 other notice of funding opportunities coming out in the next 18 months. Make sure you sign up for that. And that's probably the best way to stay up to date with all that we're doing. And on the next slide, if you have any questions, send them to epa.energy@illinois.gov. We have a team here of, it'll be 6 as of Monday, that have access to this, and we try to stay on top of those questions as quick as we can. And thank you for the time, and appreciate being a part of this Lake County Town Hall.
So much, John. That was really valuable information, especially directly from the IEPA. We really appreciate your time today. All right, and then next I will pass the mic over to Robin Grooms.
Hello, hello. Everyone can hear me?
Yes, we can.
I will try and go very fast without speaking overly quickly. I just want to thank all the presenters for all the really great information on the different programs and the funding and the tax credits. Lake County was invited here today to attend this event to share some information on our own local sustainability programs, which can be leveraged alongside IRA funding to allow even greater savings. So next slide, please. So the first program we wanted to talk about is our tree initiative. So this was launched earlier this year. It is designed to be this overarching initiative. It's going to contain several programs and projects. And so we have activated our first tree planting program. But first I wanted to give a fun fact that Lake County is considered the most biodiverse of any county in Illinois. And then there's also a not so fun fact that over 50% of our tree stems are invasive European buckthorn, which is the worst of any collar county in Chicagoland. So a lot of urban and community forestry programs are going to be very important under this new funding. So our program, the tree planting program, this is funding that is available for units of local government like municipalities, school districts, park districts, townships. And in order to be eligible for this funding, these public sites need to be in areas which benefit stormwater management efforts. So areas with low canopy cover, areas with an increased risk of flooding, areas that have a higher ambient summer temperature because of the heat island effect, and areas that have a documented history of flooding. So we plan to be using qualified arborists, helping to get the right tree at the right site and ensuring that all planted trees are native and meet specific diversity requirements for the numbers of trees from the same species, from the same genus, and even from the same family. So opportunities to leverage these free trees coming to these public sites can be documenting ongoing climate mitigation techniques, documenting urban and community forestry outreach, and documenting stormwater management efforts. So we have already finished our first round of applications, but our second round will be open in early autumn. So please be on the lookout in your emails to be applying for free trees on your public properties. And this program will be running through December 2026. So next slide, please. So I'm sure plenty of you have had the opportunity to learn at least a little bit about CPACE. So CPACE, Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. So this is a fantastic tool utilized by dozens of organizations throughout the state for obtaining up to 100% long-term fixed rate financing for commercial energy projects. So these kinds of projects, they do include solar panels and geothermal renewable projects, but you can also use this tool to finance energy efficiency projects, water efficiency projects, EV charging infrastructure, or bundling several projects together. So let's say through the Inflation Reduction Act, that funding allows a private entity to knock off 40% of the cost of a project, but it's not enough to go all the way. This is where CPACE can step in to provide that long-term funding option for the remainder of that cost. So we partner with the Illinois Energy Conservation Authority to provide this program, and we would invite anyone to speak with us on getting involved with this financing program. Next slide, please. Okay, and then finally, we have up our solar switch. So this program is designed to benefit our residential homes and small businesses. So this is a solar group buy program that is active in Chicagoland in order to get discounted rates on solar installations. So it allows a consumer to leverage existing IRA benefits, such as the tax credit, and get an even further discounted rate on a system through participating in this group buy program. So one of the reasons we really like this program is if a resident or a business owner doesn't have a lot of or any experience shopping for renewable systems, this program is run in partnership with the Citizens Utility Board, who put a lot of effort into their educational programs. So they are the ones who are hosting solar power hours through this program, most of which are virtual and some in-person events to learn the very basics about how solar installation works with zero pressure or requirements to participate in the group buy. Completely free, it's just there to be educational. And registrations for this program are open year round, and we have our next auction coming up next week. So any support that we can have getting the word out to our individual residents is always welcome. So that was a very little truncated run through of 3 programs that I really wanted to have the chance to highlight today. And I hope I get to connect with you folks on these in the future. And I will be putting my contact information in the chat very shortly.
Thank you so much, Robin. And thank you to all of our really great presenters today. We do have a minute, and so I wanted to give some time for a quick Q&A. And while we wait for the Q&A, a quick reminder, we do have another town hall coming up at Waukegan Public Library on June 27th. So please do share this information with your community members. And along with our presentation material, we'll also share those flyers that you can encourage folks to attend. But are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question about the state's home electrification and appliance rebate program. Is there a deadline on that?
Yes. So once the program launches, the program is going to be running. The funding is available all the way through September 30th of 2031. So we have some time those funds will be available. I will say certain parts of that program might roll out at different times, just based upon how things work. You know what I mean? But yeah, we have some time in it. The funds run through 2031.
So those aren't available yet?
Correct. They're not available yet. Applications are technically due January of 2025 from all the states. Most are choosing to submit earlier than that to get the program rolling. Anticipate program up and running though in 2025, shooting for Q1, Q2 for those programs.
All right. And then I guess for another question for you, you mentioned that we need a audit, an electricity audit. I know ComEd offers those. Is that going to be under the requirements or?
Yeah, we're one of the things that we're talking with USDOE is specifically about the energy audits that have to be done. They have a certain standard that they want met for those, and I would guess that ComEd's probably doesn't meet it right now, at least. So we're trying to figure, it's possible that might meet the standard by then. Maybe they will. It's something that we're in ongoing discussions with utilities, and we're working closely with Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity also on figuring out the software side for the energy audit. We have a bunch of requirements and a big list of rules that we have to follow, and certain data requirements we have to follow. And they're not really wanting to change their mind at all right now, like the U.S. Department of Energy. So we just have to get that built out, and we'll be in good shape.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us anytime if you have more questions following today's presentation. And again, another thank you to our great presenters and our partners in holding this webinar today. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Angela.